Carlos Nelson with the Kansas City Business Association and, of course, Cascade Media Group. Today, we're following up on our Urban Professional series, and we have today we're featuring Mr. Marques Bussey. How you doing, Marques?
I'm doing good, Mr. Nelson. How you doing today?
I'm doing great that I got you on the show. Got a lightweight genius here.
Yeah,
I call him my nephew, not by blood, but I've been knowing him and his family for ever since he was born. And he's into marketing, graphics, all kinds of things. I'm gonna let him talk to you about that. Hey, Marques, you know the drill. Kindergarten and up. Hit it.
So we're starting from kindergarten, right? Okay. All right. So kindergarten or preschool, I went to Bishop Helmsing is where I went to. And Bishop Helmsing is not around today, but that was a Montessori school is what that was. And, it was fun. It's a school or a curriculum where you learn on your own, pretty much. So I learned my vowels, I learned my ABCs. I did all of that by myself, but I did not learn how to read after I left kindergarten. But yeah, Bishop Helmsy is where I started from.
Move on up, baby boy. Let's keep it moving.
All right. So I left Bishop Helmsy. I graduated from preschool or kindergarten because they didn't have first grade there. So what happened was my dad and my mom had us go to Wendell Phillips. Well, I went to Wendell Phillips. And so that was a fun time. We would spend our mornings at Paseo Baptist with, I believe, your daughter, Elon, Holly Watts, and eventually David Welling would come into the piece. But all of us,
Dave.
Yeah, little
Dave. He Big Dave now.
Yeah, that's what I hear. But we all used to walk. It's crazy to me because now I have kids and we all used to walk down to school. Even at first grade, we were walking down to school from Paseo Baptist.
You remember my construction company was right across the street, really, Nelson and Nelson Construction from the school, the backyard of the school playground.
Yeah. I remember Rosanna's place.
Right. That was right next to Nelson and Nelson Construction.
Yeah.
All right. Keep it moving.
Yeah. So we walked down the street, and I'll tell you, my first day of class was with Miss Flowers, and we all sat down at the reading table, and Miss Flowers was like, Marques, can you read that sentence? And I was like, I don't know how to read. And she was like, what?
You straight out told her that, Marques?
I was like, I don't know how to read. I was like, what? And so she yelled at me. I was like, why is Miss Flowers yelling at me? And she was just like, you don't know how to read? And I was so embarrassed. I started crying. And she was like, read it. And I couldn't read it because my tears was messing up the ink on the book. So so that was like my first day, and I was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it, but I made it through the year, and I taught myself how to read. Actually, my dad came through maybe once or twice. He was like, "Here's a book, practice."
I know your dad. Here, practice, make it happen. I'll be back in an hour. The legal mind.
Legal mind, yeah. That's exactly what happened. So even at that point, it's kind of where I learned how to, teach myself things, because I think that was a different generation back then.
Self-reliance.
Yeah.
How about Carla, your sister, was growing up with her? She's younger. She's your younger sister, right? Yeah. Was she the same way, or did Christy pay a little more attention to how she was taught?
She was the same way.
Same way.
But she had she had more of a let me see, you know, if you're the firstborn, you know, they try or experiment on you with everything. And so Carla, they probably was like, okay, we didn't do that right with Marcus, so let's do this with Carla. I don't think she got more attention necessarily, but you know, I was kind of the test dummy, if that makes sense. So, but I'm going to say this: Elon, Holly, Rosanna, Carla, like they were all smart. You know, they made all A's, and during that time, I made all C's at that point in time because I really wasn't in school at that particular moment in my life. You know, I was just going to class for the most part.
That's my story.
Yeah.
And creative people, a lot of times, I didn't take tests well, and being the creativity, they might, you know, they're fitting into what the people that designed the educational system designed it for, to create automatons. And obviously, you just, even though my daughter, you know, it's hard to get out of that mindset. And I'm glad that you was able to recognize that you were different, but you was.
No,
did you know that you were smart, or did you think you was dumb?
Like,
program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.
In grade, there were two tables, right? There was a table of people who could read very well, and a table, I think, for people who were, you know, average, so to speak. And I think that was an experiment going on at that particular time when we went to elementary school. So I was in like the average.
I was going to say, was you over in the corner and you were the only one that had your own table, couldn't read?
I just had a few close people with me.
Because when I was in college, I had to take remedial courses. I thought I was so damn smart. English and stuff. My first semester, get him on out of here. he posing that he can read.
But no, I didn't even think about it. I think my head was wrapped up in my own little world. I was daydreaming all day for the most part, and drawing. That wasn't my focus. I didn't even think about. All I thought about was I need to make sure my grades are okay, so I don't get in trouble with my parents when report card comes.
Don't get that spanking.
Yeah, and it was way too much corporal punishment back then.
Marcus, you killed me. What you say? It was way too much corporal punishment.
I mean, it was
oh boy, you are clever.
I need to take some people to court is what I need to do.
They call that child abuse now.
Yeah, you know how like they did Bill Cosby? I should do some of those teachers from back then. That's how I should.
Hey, when the kids come on, and a lot of the not necessarily urban professionals, the Wave of the Future kids, most of them went to Jesuit schools, and every time they be talking about the Catholic school, I said the only thing I got from the Catholic school was the paddle and the ruler on my hand when I went. But that was when I was in 5th grade, and it was corporal punishment. They didn't spare it.
Yeah, it was wrong. I think Rosanna and Alon snitched on me one day, and I had to get the bumblebee at Purcell Baptist. But
boy, you got a good memory. That Purcell, what was the lady's name that ran that? Miss Williams. Yeah. Boy, Miss Williams, she's fire brimstone. CJ was there too, my son, and he didn't want to eat spinach and stuff at home or whatever. But when he got over there to Paseo, whatever's on that plate, because Miss Williams was going to see to it that you ate it.
Yeah, she was hard. She was.
What high school did you go to?
High school, I went to Lincoln Prep. Is where I went.
Run that down from your first. Did you know what you wanted to do by the time you got in high school?
No, not really. I think
Well,
My
run your freshman year on down, what your mindset was, and then go to your senior year. Run that down real quick.
Well, to get into it, first I went to Lincoln Middle, right?
All right, yeah. Well, run it on up.
So I went to Lincoln Middle, and Lincoln Middle was separate than Lincoln Prep at that particular time. Lincoln Middle was like a science and arts high school, or a science and math high school. It wasn't.
And excuse me for cutting you off. And I forgot to tell you, mention some of the teachers and mentors that helped you develop into who you are today as you were coming up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna start with middle school. Like middle school, again, I think it was a science and arts school at Lincoln Middle, so it wasn't like these college preparatory classes. But that school was great. I mean, it was still kind of like it wasn't as prestigious as a Lincoln College preparatory school, you know. But I will tell you this: like I had a couple of good teachers, Miss Duncan, and I believe the other guy's name was Dennis or something like that. But he was an aviator, actually. He was a pilot. And he took the whole class on flights to flight school. And we all had an opportunity to fly airplanes. Like, and as far as like being at an inner city school, that was amazing, you know.
So that's one of the things I wanted, like for my guests. What did you that it appears that's what you got from from him. What did you get from Duncan?
Duncan, I mean, she was like she was an African-American teacher, and she looked out for me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
explain. I might know, but explain to our audience. And you got to remember, we're talking high school. Some high school kids look at this interview and they feel the same way that you felt, but they, didn't know that this is maturity, how you mature. Run it down, Marques.
So Miss Duncan was our science and math teacher. So in that class, and Marques, I'm gonna speak on myself as a third person real quick, but I always felt that I could pull it off. I had a very laissez-faire kind of attitude. To be honest, I was a kind of a kid of privilege, to be honest with you. Just because, I had two successful parents, my mother being a teacher, my father being a lawyer, and then we were
successful lawyer.
So we were pretty much surrounded by the community. Like we would go visit Horace Peterson, we would hang out with you and your family. Like, we were really surrounded by the community.
Watson Holly and I'm saying all these people that really that are old like me that had a little power then. Because I know your family, my family, we go down to Crown Center. The girls would get in the pool, just paddling. They was little. Ken Spaulding's and Alexis, your cousins and stuff. But you were surrounded by middle class and upper middle class people, so therefore your values, you got the values you have. Keep it moving.
Yeah, the only reason I was thinking about school was to not get in trouble with my parents. Like I didn't really have any other ambition in middle school other than drama.
What was your godfather saying?
Nothing really. Reverend didn't really, Reverend always talked tough to me. He, what you doing? You ain't doing nothing. Can you play basketball? I don't think you could play basketball. Stuff like that. It was never really.
The big sit down.
No, I never had a big sit down from anybody.
I try to give you a big sit down at different times. All of my young, bright kids, I try to talk to from my perspective. But again, a lot of times one can't see the forest for the trees. And as you say, now that you have kids, some things that you question, now they'll be questioning you.
Yeah. I think my dad mostly talked to me about the good Lord is who he.
All right. Well, I won't knock that out, but I'm more of a pragmatist. I'm more of a realist, and because what just before I say this, tell our audience what your basic specialties are?
My basic specialties are brand strategies. And people may ask, like, well, Marcus, what are brand strategies? Pretty much brand strategies are how you want to present your company or yourself to your customer.
All right, so cut, because we're gonna go in depth with, but since I got in the media, I realized that ever since we came out the womb, we have been marketed to. Yeah. It's just by corporate America, and it started sometime. And so when you think that you thinking you like something for one reason, a lot of times that's not the reason you like it. It's because it has been subliminally or just right in your face all the time. And this media is a very powerful tool to be used if you know exactly what's happening around you in the ether. That there's so much stuff coming at you on a daily basis. Yeah. From an advertising standpoint, it doesn't even look like advertisement, and you're being advertised to. And so when you was at Lincoln, you talk. I think you had alluded a little bit about your art. You said something about drawing, because I want to know what made you go into where you was at, because I've been knowing you and you describing yourself in third person correctly. Lackadaisical, but I didn't know that you had that confidence that you could pull it off. Well, I'm saying I didn't know that when you was in high school or what have you, that you could pull it off. It was like, I don't care.
Yeah. And I just had, again, I grew up with privilege. So no matter what I did, I felt there was a safety net. Even though our parents weren't like helicopter parents, as they say today, like we pretty much had a lot of freedom as little kids growing up. And I think when we got to high school, that's when our parents were like, hold on, I want to see what you're doing.
That's when they really want to check grades and things.
Yeah, it was like, what's going on?
so how was that freshman year? What run them 4 grades down in the next 5 minutes.
Okay, bet. So freshman year, man, Mr. Nelson, I was just my interests were basketball, art, and hip hop, pretty much. Those were my interests. And there was nothing else that really touched that. There was no subjects that kind of touched that. Like my goal was to play basketball and listen to music and draw all day were my goals. And the only thing I would say is I had good support from my parents, because again, I didn't want to get in trouble with my report card. It was the biggest thing for me. I'm trying to think of all the subjects that I took, like all the teachers that I went through, but they come for me in my high school experience, they all kind of clumped together.
Hold it. Automatons, that's how people are in general. Yeah. How old are you now, Marcus?
42. Yeah.
At the older you get, the more you really can look at a personality, say, I've seen that 20 times, or I've seen that 20. And in these systems, especially these educational systems, you have to be fit in a box. And if you get out that box, you'll be out. It's almost like you have to be it's not empathy, the opposite of empathy. You have to be like in neutral all the time and just follow instructions. And so people that really have a brain, and not that they don't have a brain, that is inquisitive, that don't fit.
Yeah. I can tell you what I learned from high school. And if I had to go back, I probably would do some things different. The things I probably would do differently in terms of education is I probably would educate myself more on what colleges to go to. It was always known that you would go to college, but unfortunately, I didn't research enough about which college to go to until the very last minute. And that's something that you can't be laissez-faire about at the last minute, because that's how I operated. So that was one thing that I would do differently. The other thing I would do differently is I would take my I would have taken my art career more seriously. But I just, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So I didn't know anything about having the right portfolio to go to college, because I probably could have gotten a scholarship. I had the talent, but I didn't know the rules of the game. Like, I didn't know any of that. Like, I didn't have the conversation with my parents as far as like paying for school, how that was going to work, which area of the country I wanted to live in. I always told my parents I wanted to live someplace warm, but I didn't put anything concrete on the table with my parents. So, I think a lesson in that is, college is very expensive. So you need a really good game plan if that's your plan. Now, you don't have to go to college today, but if you are going to go to college, you need to have a game plan. Because like my senior year, like we would go to church and I hadn't applied to any colleges. And my dad was like, Marcus, do you want to be out on the street? Do you want to be homeless? And I'm like, what is
And that's classic Carl Bussey. Yeah. Not Marcus, I'm going to help you. Marcus, do you want to be on the street? You better tell me something.
Right. So I didn't know what I was doing. I had never been to college before. So, part of it was my laissez-faire attitude, but the other part of it, I didn't know anything, I didn't know anything about college. So I applied to a few colleges at the very last minute. I applied to North Carolina A&T, got accepted. I applied to FAMU, got accepted. But, I hadn't had the financial conversation with my parents. I didn't know, is this too much money or is this too little money? And then I'm having like crazy conversations with my stepmom because she keeps it real, probably too real sometimes. And
she keep it real like me.
People
think I'm real. Your stepmother be in overdrive on these people.
Right. She was like, Florida. I don't know about you going to Florida. I don't know about that. You might come back if you go down to Florida. And so I was just like, okay. So I decided to go to Little Rock, Arkansas, because my family's from there.
Hold it, and I wanted to touch on that all while we was talking about this education, because even then, when you went off to school, I was thinking why you went down there to a degree. Tell our audience who your grandfather was.
My grandfather was Charles Bussey, and he's better known as the first Black mayor of Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, here recently, they just voted in a Black mayor. He was the guy who just got voted in is the first Black mayor to be voted in. But my grandfather was appointed to become.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he was the first Black mayor, not elected, but the first Black mayor.
And see, that's the importance of having these type shows with my urban professionals or whatever, where you can tell your story and people say, oh, damn, I didn't know his grandfather or his dad was a lawyer or so forth. Yeah. So I thought you went down to Little Rock because of your heritage.
Nah, I just
right. Well, I'm saying that's what because as you said, you ain't talked to nobody about that per se. I didn't know that you were going through all of that. And when you would come home on the holidays, you would come by the house and show me some portfolios, distinctive. And I think you might even been out when you had done some stuff for Toyota or somebody, and you came by that night and you was excited and you was showing me what you were doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. I just ran out of options pretty much. And I was like, the college I went to in Little Rock, Arkansas was Philander Smith College. And that's an HBCU. And I got the full HBCU experience, so.
Tell our audience what that was like.
Oh, man. Full HBCU experience. So I got to see the fraternities, the sororities. I didn't know anything about African-American fraternities and sororities. That was my first time, other than my cousin who was a part of Omega Psi Phi. I had no understanding of what that was. So that was something that I learned the first year. And the other thing that I learned at an HBCU is those teachers really look out for you.
Family.
Yeah, it's like family. It's truly like family. And then it was even more family for me because everybody knew who my grandfather was. So it was like, to me, it was like an extra year of high school away, just because it was that safety net experience in another city. So I lived at the dormitory, and then I would walk down the street to see my grandmother. You know, whenever.
Campus is by, where's the campus? It's in the city?
Yeah, it's right in the city, and it's like a couple of blocks away from my grandparents' house.
All right.
So it was perfect, you know, for that first year out for me. But it was a great experience, man. It was like they had a female's dormitory and they had a men's dormitory. So everybody, you know, we would sneak back and forth from time to time, get into trouble because it was a private school. You know, it was I think it was a religious school. I believe it was. And so they had these, you know, these traditions that they had to maintain, so to speak, you know, but whatever.
Well, let me say this. My first year was at Virginia State, and the girls, they had to wear skirts. They had to be in by 9 or 10. Yep. The boys sniffing around the dorms, trying to come up with some schemes that that fail, because if one of them mother hens catch you that in them dorms, you're in real trouble.
Definitely. Yeah, it was fun. The people that I met my freshman year, I still talk to those dudes today. I was roommates with Jason Hasley, Mr. Hasley's son. So we had a good time, man. And, you know, we got into trouble. Like, we got into trouble with some gang members down there one time because it was at that time, I don't know if you remember, but they had an HBO special about the gangs in Little Rock, or banging in Little Rock.
I remember.
Yeah. And so we were walking to a Omega Psi Phi party. And so we were, consequently, we all had red on. And it was unintentional. It just happened. And we all had red on. We were walking down the street. And this older guy was like, hey, somebody needs to take off that red. You know, we're walking down into a Crip neighborhood. Somebody needs to take that red off. And we was like, man, get out of here, man. This is Little Rock. I'm not afraid of Little Rock. So we're walking down the street, and some gang members, some Crips came out the apartment, and they yelled they sign, and they walked the other direction. So we was like, whatever, we're cool. And this guy was like, the guy from Chicago who was leading us to the party, he was just like, okay, once we hit this corner, we're gonna run. And I'm like, we're all laughing, like, whatever, man. Like, and then they were right behind us. I guess they cut the corner and came back. So we couldn't see them that they were coming back. And they came back and they started shooting.
That's how it was when I was coming up in the 60s. We'd go to the pen relays in Philadelphia. Coach would let us, after the relays, go to eat. You come out the restaurant. Hey, bro, where you from? Yeah. Stuff like that. Yeah. And back then, cars had antennas. And boy, they would whip off an antenna. Hey, chase you all the way to the subway station. Because no driving, no cars back then. So I get it. So your senior, when did you decide that you wanted to go into the profession that you're in now?
Well, I'll give you a story, man. I decided my sophomore year at Philander. At that particular time, I had gotten a job being a cameraman at a local television station. So that was really cool for me. And I was making good money. I was in the dormitory, but I sat and thought about it. I was like, Marques, what do you want to do? And it was art that I wanted to do. I had made my decision at that point that I'm going to do art. And so I decided that it was time to go. So the hardest part was me talking to my dad that it was time for me to leave Philander Smith, because he had gotten comfortable.
With you being away, and I know what he was doing. He was running with me and Fuzzy and Alex and no kids.
Yeah, well, he had got comfortable with it, and I was like, Dad, I'm not going back to Philander. He was like, what?
That was hard. How did you had to bulk up to tell him that?
No, I didn't even. I was real calm. He was real upset, It was in the car after church, and I was like, I'm not going back. And he was like, you're gonna go back. You're gonna go back. And I was like, Dad, I can't go back.
What was Fuzzy saying?
Well, Dad, you know how Dad is. So if Dad's upset about something, he told all his buddies that I was dropping out of college. Is what.
This program is brought to you by Black Star Group.
What he told.
He'd be over sarcastic, man. He needed to be on As the World Turns.
Yeah. So he told everybody's calling me up and dropping out of college. I was like, no, I'm a transfer because they don't have my degree at this particular college. So I got to transfer. So I had a little break. I was a janitor at Pembroke Hill for a little while. I had a little stint up there. So, you know, I was cleaning out toilets and cleaning up floors. I received that job from the Full Employment Council. So
Ride McQueen.
yeah. So that was definitely a motivator for me to get back in college.
Yeah, show you what it's really like.
Yeah.
You want to do this the rest of your life?
Yeah, and I was just 19 at the time. So the kids I was cleaning up after, you know, they looked my age and everything. So I was just like, yeah, I got to get up out of here. So I transferred over to Southwest Missouri State is where I went to. And it's better known as Missouri State today. But at that school, like they had a great graphic design program. The professors there were from East Europe. They're from Yugoslavia, Poland, Russia. And so that's where I learned all of my foundational skills of design is where I learned that at. So, you know, that was a great experience for me. I take that with me everywhere I go. Just because I received such a great.
Do you remember any of those instructors that you want to, you know, give them their props?
It'll come to me because their names are a little long.
Right. You know, you were one of the first persons that I introduced with their name. Most of the time I'd be like, who do we have here? Because the names be so, I'd be like, I mess your name up. You just say, my name is so-and-so, and that solves it.
Yeah.
All right. So you come out of school.
Mm-hmm.
What's your move after you get out of school?
So here's the deal. I got a BFA in illustration and design, right?
Run that down. What that means? That's an acronym. My viewers might not be sophisticated to know what you're talking about.
Sometimes I forget too, so I'll run it down. But it's a Bachelor of Fine Arts. Is what that is. So that's a BFA. And it had an emphasis in illustration, but the foundation was graphic design. So sometimes like you might see illustrations in magazines, paintings, things like that. Those are illustrators who do that. And then you have graphic design. So I had a little bit of both. And to be a graphic designer, you don't necessarily need to be a traditional artist. You just need to know how to arrange things or put a composition together, you know, with typography. Typography is putting type together, like paragraphs, headlines, you know, all those things. How do you lay out copy with photography or illustrations? And so that's kind of what graphic design is today. And today it's much more intensive because you have a digital side to it, which you were just talking about earlier, like marketing. So, you know, how do you market to people today? It's not just magazines or books anymore. You market to people today on their phone, on their laptops, on their tablets. You're getting marketed now 24/7. You know, back in the day, you could turn the TV off or close the book. But today, like, there's no escape from it. But you can create your own world today. And so if you understand that, you know, you can really make your business or again, your personal brand stand out from the rest.
What I want to ask you, who have you worked for in the past?
Oh,
you have your own company, but what large companies or small companies that you've worked for to you 42, you've been out a minute.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I'm old now.
Right, but who, you know, building your skill set.
Yeah.
Where'd you pay your dues at?
I had I had a minor in marketing, right? So there was this ad club team that we did, and we did a campaign for Toyota my senior year in college. And this ad team kind of like, they have like what is the AAF, the American Advertising Federation is what they have up here. And so you have all these companies on the professional level who compete for awards, so to speak. And so then they have college rankings where you can compete for awards as well. So we won first place in the Midwest area. We got first place regionally for our Toyota campaign for the, if you guys remember, it's the Toyota Matrix. And so this car was, you had to create an ad campaign that was directed toward Generation X, is what you had to do at that particular time. And again, we got first place in the Midwest, and then we went to California and we got 8th place nationally out of all these different schools from across the country. So that was great. And that's where I connected with a company called ASA Marketing, and they were located in Topeka, Kansas. And they gave me my first job, and I fucked that job all the way up.
How did you do that, Marques?
I just wasn't ready, you know.
But you thought you were.
Well, I'm always like, go for it.
Oh, all right. Because you know how many interns I've had over here at my company.
Yeah.
And all of them think that they the only one that got a brain. They the sharpest knife, and that, you know, you got to be able to mix the traditional stuff with the new stuff. And they only want to do the new stuff a lot of times. And when they don't see that, because you're running a business, it be friction, or they stuffy. Oh, they don't know. What was that relationship like? You say you messed it up, so.
Well, because I had done such a great job at that competition, like I did everything during that competition. I did the design, I did video production, I did everything. So I made a presentation to their company, and they were blown away at all the things that I did. But I had never had an internship, you know, ever for a marketing company. So I didn't really know the lay of the land. And so a lot of times, like when I was talking about high school and not knowing that I needed a portfolio to get an art scholarship, so to speak, a lot of times in our community, we don't know the lay of the land. Like we're all talented enough, we all work hard, but sometimes, including myself, we don't know the rules to the game. And that's just the biggest thing. I didn't know the lay of the land. I didn't know what it meant to ask questions, you know, because you don't want to make a mistake. And sometimes when you don't want to make a mistake, you're reluctant to ask questions because you might look dumb, or you might look like you don't know what you're talking about. So, you know, I was just ill prepared as far as like, you know, what their expectations were. Like I never asked what their expectations were, you know, so I wasn't getting the work done in a fashion that they needed it done at. So I wasn't late to work, I was on time. I pretty much got along with everybody. I didn't necessarily get along with the creative director there. So I had no idea. They were mostly doing like newspaper ads. So I knew nothing about newspaper ads and what that was, you know? So it's just, I would say that the other part of that answer though, what went wrong or what I messed up was know your value. Always know your value. Don't be afraid to ask questions. You're not gonna look stupid, you know, to say like, I don't know what this means, or I don't know how this software works. Or another thing is know your value and how much you're getting compensated as a creative. Always know that. And if you need to walk away from a job, walk away. You know, so one day the creative director called me into the office and he was like, Marques, you know, I don't think this is working out.
You know, then that you was leaving?
Yeah. He was like, I don't think this is working out. And I was like, I understand that, man. I was like, you know what? I appreciate your time. And then I even asked him, I was like, can I get a reference?
You're a classic. You know, we talk about your dad, but buddy, the apple didn't fall. The apple fell. It didn't even roll. It fell right where the tree is. Cause you and your daddy, would you ask him, can I get a reference?
He looked at me like, what?
if you get the hell out of here right now.
I was like, I was on time, you know. I did
my best.
I did my best, you know, it just didn't work out.
So after that stint, what was your next move, man?
My next move was, there were two moves, right? So that safety net I was talking about, Carla had a job with Phil Curls at that particular time.
I remember.
And the Missouri Legislative Black Caucus is who she was working for. The Missouri Legislative Black Caucus Foundation is who she was working for. And so they were working with
black knapsacks and
I'll
tell you, I remember.
Yeah. And they were working with these agencies, because the agencies that they work with, right? The state, they have to have, the creative agencies have to give some of that contract to minority-owned businesses. So they have to do that in order to get the bigger contract with the MLBCF, right? And so they were talking to me and my sisters like, well, we could give you guys a piece of that contract. And so that was my first deal, you know? So I had got, you know, let's say I got fired from my first job, but then I got a contract with the MLBCF. So set up your safety nets, you know, set up your relationships as you grow your career, you know, always do that. But we got a contract, and our first amount of money was for $10K for our first contract, which was really good. You know, I was like, wow, I had never made that much money for one particular project. So we did that contract. And so that was just a side piece, like, yeah, I'm gonna grow my business, But during that time, I got an internship because I graduated college not too long after 9/11. And during that time, there weren't a lot of jobs out there doing what I do. There just wasn't. So I got an internship. The company's name was CHRW, was the company's name. And it was like, those guys were really great for me to intern with. And so I had that contract with Phil Curls, right? And then I had an opportunity to do some illustrations for the roastery, which was great too. And so they came up with a campaign, and then I was able to do 2 illustrations for the roastery. And so they took that campaign and they got an Omni Award, you know, for that campaign. And one of the ones that I had worked on went on to nationals as far as, you know, competitions go. So, you know, I was doing great at that particular time in terms of growing my career. And so I would pretty much do my own business. I would say the number one issue was, though, I didn't have a business plan. You know, so I was like a solopreneur, working by myself, working in my apartment, barely paying the bills because I didn't have a business plan. You know, so I would get work in. I didn't understand invoicing. I didn't understand, you know, how do you collect money from your clients? I didn't understand deposits. You know, I didn't understand contracts. So I was just, you know, learning as I went. And so, you know, I did all okay. You know, I did all right. I had a few good contracts here and there with magazines and things of that nature, but nothing that really cemented, so to speak. One big contract was I worked with these 2 guys, John Lewis and Kareem Jackson, and they had the magazine out. Minority Success is what they did. So they had that magazine out.
I remember that.
And I learned a lot from those guys in terms of
did they go to Boston or somewhere?
One of them went to Boston, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and then the other one lives in the Philippines, I think. Is where he went to. So I learned a lot from them in terms of putting a magazine together, what you could do for our community, things of that nature. I had a good time with them. Unfortunately, they folded, for financial reasons.
That's what, hold it. The Kansas City Business Association, everybody that's watching, remember this is Kansas City Business Association show. Our major problem is lack of capital. You've seen me grow this company. If I wasn't basically in a retired type situation as it relates to family, 30 years married, CJ, Rosanna, all of them grown, got kids, they off. I couldn't afford to do all the different programs because, frankly, we're not bringing in the revenue, but our community still needs to have this voice. And so it's across the board, across the United States. It's not just here in Kansas City that we've got. You've already just in the conversation thus far showed that you have talent, and we basically I haven't had to, but basically sell your lifetime clock, your life talents to a corporation, or I like to say to the majority community, and it helps you sustain yourself, but it really doesn't add to where you really want to go in the direction of your creativity. If you have the economics, you can make some things really happen.
Yeah, from my experience, it takes us longer to get to that destination because, for me, I didn't have the knowledge, right? And then I didn't have the backing necessarily.
And that's a double whammy. Yeah. I started this company, I didn't have the knowledge. Everything is on the job training, and it's going to take you like a long time. I've been since 2008, really. And then once you even have the knowledge, you don't have the economics. And then you're pigeonholed. You're not to a degree, but you're pigeonholed to do business only in your community for the most part until you reach a certain level of status and everything. When you reach that, you really don't need the majority community, but the majority community now wants to do business with you. But out of 5,000 businesses, maybe 2 will survive to that point.
Right. And I didn't know the numbers up until now because Kareem and John, they were set out to build this magazine and to help Black-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses. But our community doesn't have a lot of wealth in the community. So I was looking at some numbers for Kansas City, and I think the average wealth of a Black family is at $1,700. So if that's your wealth, you're probably living from paycheck to paycheck, and you don't have
not buying no magazines that cost a couple of dollars.
Oh, well, you don't have the capital to grow your business if you're living paycheck to paycheck. So I think that's the other thing that I learned, and to think about, do you want to grow your business here locally? But with today's technology, you can grow your business from a global standpoint, which you're doing, and I think people have to think globally now because currency, you can get paid from all over the world now.
Hey, Marques, because you're pigeonholed with the community and the people that you have, the majority community don't go to Black people for information for the most part. Unless they you got a relationship with them, they know that you extra smart, then they're going to, and whatever you're doing. Our people, limited resources, limited knowledge, you're not going to grow no business. It's virtually impossible. I know I have a thing that makes my business run. I put so much sweat equity.
You do.
And so in a business like mine, if you had put the sweat equity that I got in this company, might be $5 million. All you have to do is your time, what it would call cameras, all of that type stuff. But the average person doesn't see that.
No.
And even in your business, I'm pretty sure you've collaborated with a couple of different people, and they see you get a big check or what have you, and they be like, oh, I can do this. They don't understand.
No, people don't understand the legwork you put up front to become an overnight success. Like, they don't really get that. And I'll tell you, man, like, because I didn't have the right business model at the particular time, my daughter came. And so I was like, oh, it was my first child. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, can I afford to take care of my daughter?
I might have to go rob banks.
Yeah, you might go rob. So luckily what happened was, again, I had been in business for myself for maybe about 10 years or so. And so I decided to go to corporate America. This was my first time being in corporate America, or what I told you earlier, when I got my first job out of college. I hadn't had a job, for 10 years, a 9 to 5. I hadn't had one. And so my first job back to a 9 to 5 was at Hallmark. That was my first job back. So now that was a whole experience in itself. Now, to give you some numbers, the design industry is only 3% Black. It's only 3% Black. And I think it's 70% or 60% female is the design industry. So I'm coming into Hallmark, and again, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I'm a designer.
To a paycheck, you knew that.
I knew I was getting paid. Yeah, I knew but they had me in there tying ribbons and putting glitter on stuff like that, and gems and stuff like that.
That's not what you signed up for.
Well, I didn't even think about that world. They call it being crafty. And I didn't know anything about that. And so I would go up to some of my coworkers and be like, can you tie this knot for me? And they would look at me crazy like, what? If you don't get out of here. I didn't know how to tie bows on the cards. Like I would come home with glitter on my face, and people would ask me, have you been to the strip club?
Yeah, hey, something else. How'd you feel about the racial mix over there?
It is a very diverse company, I will say. I don't think, when I was there anyway, on the teams I worked on, I don't think they are as diverse as they could be in the design area. Overall, I think the company is pretty diverse, but the design area, when I was there, I think it could have been more diverse in terms of race, because I was on teams with mostly women. So I was probably the only male on a lot of the teams. And so that had its own thing, like, how do you navigate in a space that's all female?
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you put your reserve suit on?
Yeah, I made sure I kept my eyes on the computer, and I made sure I try not to say anything wrong that people would take out of context.
That's right. The reserve suit, just let's keep everything cool. I'm here. Let me know what you need me to do. I got that. And all right.
Even if something happened, I would always bring, if I got into trouble with a coworker, I would bring them flowers, even if it wasn't my fault. Because if I get into an altercation with somebody, it's still my fault at the end of the day. So,
Well, you got the system that really cracked you in your head and got you squared away. Hey, you know what? When I be trying to tell some of my clients how they need to handle different things, I'm like, you're doing things at your house in the yard with whether it be physical or whatever, and you got neighbors. I'm like, even though your neighbors don't mind, because you talk to them, I'm like, one day, take them a bottle of wine, find out what they want. And you know how I talk. People take it wrong. I'll be like, F you. But now I'm more like, if I did something wrong, I'm sorry. Here's this, give them a card or do whatever, flowers. Hey, let me take you out to lunch.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So run it down about Messenger Inc. because we're gonna close this on down. What you want your the audience to know and prospective clients.
So our moniker or what we stand by is decode the brand, launch the dream, right? And so we stand by that just because everybody has a dream that they want to live up to or that they want to live in. And so within that, there's a brand that's unique to you and your business. And so we just want to take those steps to bring that out, whether that's through different forms of marketing, whether that's through logo design, whether that's through messaging, whether that's through how do you want to position yourself in the industry. We want to help you do that because once you find your unique space, you can do whatever you want to with that business. Like once you find that, let's say calling or that anthem or that campaign, you can pretty much you can launch whatever product you want to launch pretty much. You know, you just have to have something that you stand by and that other people will attach themselves to. So we kind of help bring that out. And it starts like people will usually come up to my company like, can I get a logo? Or can I get a brochure? You know, can I get these things? And I'm like, is that really what you're asking? Like, what are you really asking me for? And usually they're asking me for branding or positioning is what they're usually asking me for. And we always try to get our clients to start with that. You know, if it's not in place, you know, we usually go there because a lot of times when people work with creatives, they may just be asking them for a brochure, but what they're really asking them for is like, how does my business work? You know, how do I talk to my customers? You know, what do I say? You know, what do I leave?
That limited knowledge of what it is. I have people coming to me all the time, coaches and different things. We want to stream our games and this and that. I'm like, you don't want to stream the game. Streaming is when you have a pre-audience. You've already set it up. We're going to do this at this time, at this date, and we're going to be streaming live. What you want is it recorded and put on the internet. Streaming, you better have a good connection wherever you're at. And sure. All of that's dollars and cents. You're not even looking at that part of the equation. You've been looking at so much TV and you think everything you can just do and you use wrong terms and you convey wrong things. And then when a person give you a big figure, then you like, well, no, well, you said you wanted to stream. These are all the things that it takes to stream.
Right. Definitely.
And when they come to you, they might say they want a logo, but that's not really, when they start talking about what they're trying to do, then you're saying, you're talking about branding, you're talking about marketing.
Right.
I want to ask you this, because in my industry, do you think that they really get it on marketing that because you put an advertisement out there, business is not going to run to your door? When you do a marketing or branding campaign, to me, it needs to be at least 6 months to 12 months. And you can't be looking for a whole, you lucky if you get some real quick results in a couple of weeks. But on the average, it's about consistency and repetition from what my on-the-job training.
Yeah, you're right. I think a lot of times companies or businesses or people are looking for a magic bean is what they're looking for. Like, what is that magic bean? And I just want to throw it into the world and get my beanstalk and now I'm out.
That's like me. What is that pill that take this 30 pounds off real quick?
Yeah.
Instead of you know what it takes to get this off.
You got to do the work.
Right. And so people want to come to you, even me. You know how many times I come to you, try and get you to do some work. People want to come to you and say, all I need is this. They don't really understand the thought process that goes into, I only need you to do this. If it's going to be right.
Right. And it's those little things you said too, is taking your customer or potential customer a bottle of wine, saying thank you. Like, what do you say in your email? If you're inviting them to something, or if you're saying thank you, what do you say in that email? Like, how do you build, how can you grow your business from a branding standpoint that is of shared value with not only you, but your customers and then their family and friends?
And tell me, I might be repetitious because I want to get off this damn Zoom, but I do. But I'm saying, with who you are, you definitely giving them an earful about that. You know what you're talking about. What I want to ask you, how do you feel that the general Black public uh, takes your advice versus majority? I hate using these terms, but it's just that simple. The white man's ice is cold, his sugar is sweeter. Uh, and when you start dealing with competition, people that are doing the same thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I even had to learn that to some degree, actually. And it's a lot of times in the Black community, we don't look at potential. We looked at things sometimes in a skeptical way, if that makes sense. We're not thinking about, well, one, let me say this. A lot, like, I'm gonna share my experience with you, what I did earlier. I didn't have a business plan, right? I didn't have a lot of knowledge on how the game runs. So I'm not only lacking knowledge in my industry, right? I'm also, which causes me to be skeptical of what you're selling, because I don't know how my business is supposed to grow. So I'm just learning on the job. So I'm gonna definitely be skeptical of you, because you probably look like me and we're probably in the same boat, so to speak. But maybe other communities, they look more successful on paper, so maybe they know what they're doing. But that's not necessarily the case. The case is, know your business plan. That's the case. And you don't have to be a skeptic. You don't have to be unhealthy skeptic, is what you don't have to be. Like, know your baseline, know how much you charge your customers. Like, these are just like basic things. And that kind of takes away, like, okay, what's Carlos up to? What's he doing? Like, that's not my concern. Like, the people I do business with, their business is not necessarily my concern if it doesn't directly affect my bottom line. Like, he's going to charge me this amount. Okay, that works. For my future financial goals, that will work for me. I'm not worried about this and that. So I think that's the thing. And that's the why when you get into an industry, you need to learn all the ins and outs about it. And then you need to make that industry unique for your product, is what you need to do. Like what you're doing with all the different facets of Cascade. Like, all these different facets are great. And I can
most of them to the industry.
Right. But just know your, like what I told you earlier, is like, people are coming to me for logo design, right? So if I did just what they were telling me to do, I wouldn't necessarily make any money, because if you're doing a logo for somebody who doesn't know their business, then you're going to be spending, I don't know how much time trying to deliver on the perfect.
Right. Because when you came to the Kansas City Business Association year before last, and you did a presentation, you talked about doing logos and the market colors, type, all of those things make a difference, and that represents the industry that you're in. That's what and the average guy, they've been watching Facebook, get a logo for $20, get a logo for $25, and
Right.
don't understand the thought that needs to go in your specific business. And that's why you are a professional in this industry. It's
Right.
like you got Pepsi Cola or Coca-Cola. Everybody sells cola but Best Buy Cola is not a damn Coca-Cola, that's for sure. I know when I was drinking colas, I had to have a Coke. Pepsi wasn't going to do. RC wasn't going to do.
Right.
Lemon lime and 7 Up. People be like, I want a 7 Up.
Right. Or like Nike, before Jordan, what was Nike? You have to think about, or before they came up with their slogan, just do it. What were they before that?
Yeah, and those are the type of tips and advice and consultations that Messenger Inc. Is available to do.
Yeah.
Give our audience how they can contact you, what your handles are on the different social media channels.
My website is messengerinc.com. You can hit me up there. You can email me messengerinc@gmail.com. Again, Messenger Inc. on Twitter. You can hit me up on those 3 things, and I'm always on LinkedIn if you want to check for my name.
All right, there's 2 things I'm getting ready to say. I'll send you my bill. It'll be in the mail tomorrow. And I'm getting ready to steal Uncle Jimmy's closing lines. He's got a killer closing line. I steal it all the time just to make him mad. Jim Watt's closing line that Miss Nelson stealing. It was a plum pleasing pleasure to have you on the show tonight, Marques.
Yeah.
Jim, you better not steal my line. My line is always, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
This is brought to you by Willer's Book and Vinyls.